And then I can go do a Jonathan and say, alrighty, and attempt to go live on Facebook. Except they want me to switch accounts. That always happens to me, Jonathan. Facebook doesn't love me.
He wants you to switch Facebook accounts?
Yeah. That's all right. We're almost there. All right, Mark, you can start and I'll finish this off.
Everyone else is muted? I don't think so. We still need to mute
Oh,
everyone.
you want me to mute everyone?
Yeah.
There we go. Mute all. Over to you.
Well, thank you. So here we are at Lit Balm number 107.5. The 0.5 is because I'm not quite sure if it's 107, 108. But anyway, around there. And well, what a ride we have been on. It's been bloody amazing. I wanted to use the F word, but I stopped myself. Anyway, we are so delighted today to have the Lavender Ink Diálogos special, and featuring John Warner Smith, T. Thilleman, Jonathan Kline, Luis Bravo with translator Catherine Jagoe, and Zvonko Karanović, maybe, with translator Biljana D. Obradović. And thank you so much for joining us today. Before we move further, I'm going to introduce my co-host, Jonathan Penton, who founded Unlikely Stories in 1998. Unlikely Stories is an electronic journal of literature and art. And since then, Jonathan has lent editorial and management assistance to many literary and artistic ventures, including Mad Hat, the New Orleans Poetry Festival, Rigorous, and Big Bridge. In 2005, Jonathan founded Unlikely Books, which publishes 3 to 5 books of poetry a year. He's organized literary performances and performed himself across the United States. His poetry books are Last Chap from Virgin Press, Blood and Seltzer and Painting Rust, Prosthetic Gods from New Sin's Wings City Chapbooks, and Standards of Saturday from Litfest Press, and the free chapbook Backstories, which you can download from Argotist eBooks. Hi, Jonathan.
Hello, Mark. Thank you. So, as the regulars can tell you, I'm not terribly prolific, and what I do most weeks is read something that we've recently published at unlikelystories.org. I have a wonderful poem here that I did not get a chance to rehearse, but it's called The Roar from Down the Road by James Graybill. The Roar from Down the Road. That clamor out of the east, what's coming down the road, it sounds like the time ahead is made out of titanium, with 10,000 gargantuan devices of trash collection, rumbling on each future block, fueled by inconceivable grief. It's elephant time, the roar, more being touched inside out than hearing sound, a kind of cold current rolling like the ocean through rock of the planetary mantle, then splashing on the ground, countless speared pachyderms crashing down on their sides. That roar, weather transformed by the ice melt in the air, magnificent animals fall crashing, great trees of forest in climax, cracking in a booming thud on the forest floor. Every original old-growth tree, lost hundreds of times over, erased in an instant, without replacement. It's the ocean sound of no replacement that attends death, one at a time, one gasoline explosion engine at a time, and then the next, adding up to this racket, with every chainsaw in Mississippi and Kansas buzzing, severing the habitat from its foundation. Tens of thousands of sea lions in hollow rock coves, tens of thousands of big African cats locked in zoos, and tons of military donkeys are braying out of the Bible with propagation and suffering. It's in a squall, this place by the road, where trucks are hauling secret ingredients to an invisible facility as molten iron pours from taps until kitchens cave into Iron Age crawl spaces. Iron Age rhinos built out of iron must be charging down iron stairwells, then bashing past the metal door at the bottom of the stairs to reach tens of thousands of electric guitars being broadcast from high-rise Fender amps for such intensity to be audible here. Armies of liquefied hillsides must be collapsing in bald mouths of scared ventriloquists shouting vacuous, deafening blurs at the place where the sun sets, the Anthropocene braying, rumbling in mantle from state to state, engines exploding, wrecking balls bashing at remorse, the shape of immense apartment houses burned in air. Again, that was The Roar from Down the Road by James Grable. Hope you liked it. All right, it's my great pleasure to introduce our co-host, Cassandra Atherton. Cassandra is an award-winning writer, scholar of prose poetry, an award-winning writer, scholar of prose poetry, and professor of writing and literature in Melbourne. Her most recent books of prose poetry are Pre-Raphaelite, Leftovers, and Fugitive Letters. She is currently writing a book of prose poetry on the atomic bomb with funding from the Australia Council. I've read it, it's wonderful. Cassandra co-wrote Prose Poetry and Introduction and the Anthology of Australian Prose Poetry. She is commissioning editor for Westerly Magazine. Cassandra, are you going to read for us today?
Yeah, I'm going to read a co-written poem today. And of course, it's a prose poem because I'm devoted to prose poetry. I'm obsessed like a Bronte, red-dressed like Kate Bush. I'm small words in miniature books, a rich juvenilia of play. I'm a pointed toe in a snug shoe, a muddy stain on a famous painting. When we walk the moors, I press sprigs of heather between the moonbeams from lightning pages. You take a photograph of me on Penistone Crag, wild air, blown hair, wilderness. I think of Emily's ritual of walking in circles and of eternal return. I remember your preference for straight lines. We survey crags and boulders, recite passages, but no words capture the rising feeling. No nouns encompass what we want to express, as nightfall feels like a rainy, unkempt metaphysics. You drag your green coat closely, and I see the waking moor upon you like a tide. I would like to introduce the intrepid Mark Vincennes. He is an Anglo-Swiss American poet, a fiction writer, translator, editor, publisher, designer, multi-genre artist and musician. He's published 20 books of poetry, including more recently Einstein Fledermaus, The Little Book of Earthly Delights, A Brief Conversation with Consciousness, There Might Be a Moon or a Dog in Australia, 39 Wonders and Other Management Issues, which is just released from Spite and Dibble and is beautiful. He might hold a copy up for us if we're lucky because it looks gorgeous. And The Pearl Diver of Irunmani, forthcoming early 2023 from White Pine Press. If that's not enough, he also has, I know you all know this, an album of music, ambience and verse called Left Hand Clapping, which is forthcoming from Tree Torn Records. Vincennes is also a prolific translator, and he's translated from, let me hear you, German, Romanian, and French. He's published 11 books of translations, most recently an Audible Blue, Selected Poems 1963 to 2016 by award-winning Swiss poet and novelist Klaus Mertz, just out from White Pine. He is currently working on a novel entitled The Age of Occasions. Vincennes is editor and publisher of Mad Hat Press and publisher of New American Writing. And this is the bit we all love. Join in. He has lived all over the world, from Brazil to China to Iceland to India. He was born in Matilda Hospital on the Peak in Hong Kong, but he now lives on a farm in rural Western Massachusetts, overlooking Herman Melville's Greylock Mountain, Melville's inspiration for Moby Dick, where there are more fiery searcher caterpillar hunters, Big Dipper fireflies, and earth-boring scarabs than people. I love a firefly, Mark. I think we said you live on Firefly Farm, except we can't say it. And we don't get fireflies here in Australia. So please read for us, and I can imagine fireflies.
A wine-bearing grape. At the end of that chain of refutations, a snowy evening in the hills, and lovely beings settle in their gloomy chambers. Blind pride opens up. Wasn't it you? Someone says. This is not for the kingdom, another advises. Both of you are sleeping, says a third. She has that inward movement in her eyes, wild, animal-like. We notice her hair frizzled, frizzy anyway. It answers just part of the question. There's nothing like these terraces at moonlight. And now I am delighted to introduce the amazing Bill Lavender, who is a poet, novelist, and publisher living in New Orleans. My Id, his 11th book of poetry, was published by BlazeVox in 2019. His novel trilogy, Three Letters, was released last year by Spite and Dival. His verse memoir, Memory Wing, called by Roger Kamnatz's as a contemporary autographical masterpiece, was published by Black Widow in 2011. His book Surrealism was published in 2016 and translated into Spanish by Enrique Solinas. The bilingual edition was released in Uruguay as Surrealismo in 2017. He founded Lavender Ink, a small press devoted mainly to poetry, in 1995, and he founded Diálogos, an imprint devoted to cross-cultural literatures, mostly in translation, in 2011. Lavender Ink Diálogos now has more than 200 books in print. Bill is the co-founder with Megan Burns of Trembling Pillow Press of the New Orleans Poetry Festival coming up next April. And please do visit NOLA Poetry, one word, NOLA poetry.com, and check out how to participate because it's coming up. Welcome, Bill.
Thanks. And thanks to Jonathan, Cassandra, Mark for having this reading for Devoted to the Press. I'm going to just take a quick second here at the beginning to kind of introduce you guys to the press. I'm going to share a screen and just look at the website. That's not it. Real quick, if you can bear with me. There we go. So this is the online catalog for the press. We have, as he said, more than 200 books in print. A lot of them are, they range from the very local, New Orleans focused, to the extremely international and historic. This one, Furrows of Thirst, is a new one that's just released. This is by a Portuguese poet, Eugenio de Andrade. And then we have this by Origami by Mexican poet Manuel Lacia, translated by Indran Amirthanayagam. Here's a new translation of an old novel by Pio Baroja, whom Ernest Hemingway said should have won the Nobel Prize instead of him, etc. Here's Improviso, which I believe Todd is going to read from shortly, and the Wisdom of Ashes and Standing at the Gate by Jonathan Kline, that you'll hear from shortly. And I just want to kind of show you how it works. For example, you can go look at a book, and if you want to see everything that Todd Thilleman has on the site, you click on his name there and you get a little bio of him and his 2 books. Or you can, let's say, search for books in Serbian, and you'll see we have a few. And these 2 cat painters, the anthology, translated by Biljana, who will be reading shortly with Zvonko, and then Zvonko's book, Sleepwalkers and a Picnic. But anyway, go check out the site. Those of you who don't go there all the time, including my own authors, go check it out sometime and and see what you think. There's also a blog on the front of it where I make little announcements infrequently. Excuse me. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and introduce our first readers. We have two dual readers, translator poet pairs. And the first one is going to be translator Biljana Obradović with Serbian poet Zvonko Karanović. I hope I got your name somewhat correct there, Zvonko.
Yes.
So Zvonko Karanović was born in 1959, poet and fiction writer, born in Serbia. Like the poets of the Beat generation, he takes as his models. He traveled widely throughout Europe, hitchhiking and often changing jobs. He's worked as a journalist, editor, radio host, DJ, concert organizer, and for 13 years, he was the owner of a music store. Today, he lives in Belgrade, where he runs a publishing house, PPM Enclave. Zvonko was an underground cult figure and seminal influence on a whole generation of younger poets, known to his fan club as the Silver Surfer. He's produced some of the most significant and influential politically engaged poetry of his generation. His poems have been translated to 16 languages and published in representative literary magazines in South Central Europe, as well as numerous Serbian international anthologies, including new European poets from Grey Wolf Press. His trilogy, The Diary of Deserters, is the first such project in 21st century Serbian literature, taking place between April 1998 and October 5th, 2000. The trilogy chronicles the lives of three young men who, fighting for their beliefs, attempt to live freely in an unfree land. His trilogy is dedicated to Serbia's lost generation, those who in the 90s either left the country, perished in the new Balkan Wars, or suffered social marginalization due to their cosmopolitan worldview. All three novels received high acclaim. He has received several Serbian literary awards for poetry and international fellowships for writers such as the Heinrich Bell Foundation in Cologne. He has performed at numerous literary festivals in Europe. He has 10 collections of poetry, many of which have been translated into multiple languages. And his translator, Biljana D. Obradović, is a Serbian-American poet, translator, critic. She has lived in Yugoslavia, Greece, and India besides the US. She's professor of English at Xavier University in New Orleans. She received her BA in English language and literature from the University of Belgrade and an MFA from Virginia Commonwealth University and a PhD from the University of Nebraska. She has taught at Xavier University in New Orleans since 1997. She writes in English and has 3 previous collections of poems, Frozen Embraces, Le Riche Monde, and Little Disruptions, all published with facing page translations in Serbia. She also translates from English to Serbian, which she has of American poets like John Gary, Stanley Kunitz, Ezra Pound's granddaughter, Patricia de Rokovilc, Bruce Weigel, and Nigerian poet Niyi Oshundari. She edited and translated in both directions, English to Serbian, 50 poems by Serbian and American poets, a bilingual anthology in 2002. And she is co-editor and translator with Dubravka Đurić of Cat Painters, which you just saw on the share screen and which she's holding up right there. An anthology of contemporary contemporary Serbian poetry from the 60s to the present. which Diálogos put out in 2016. And so I'm going to turn it over to Biljana and Zvonko. You're muted.
Thank
Hi
you.
to everybody.
Hello, thank you, Bill. Zvonko is going to read in Serbian and then I will read in English. Go ahead.
Okay. Hello to everybody. Thank you for the opportunity to read couple of my poems to new audience. And I will read in Serbian. Can I start?
Yes.
U hotelskoj sobi. Sedeo je na krevetu u hotelskoj sobi samo u belim boksericama koje su mu dopirali do kolena. Razgovarao je telefonom s majkom. Njegova majka bila je odavno mrtva. Glas iz slušalice samo je ličio na glas njegove majke. Dubina detalja je presudna u pisanju, neko je govorio s druge strane. Velika gola žena, širokih ramena i masivnih butina igrala je iza njega. Sporo se izvijala uz ritam elektronske muzike koja je tiho dopirala iz zvučnika raspoređenih po uglovima sobe. Potom je čuo. Izbegava ženske likove, fasciniran si mašinama. Tvoj otac je bio na putu kada sam te rodila. Biljana.
In a hotel room. He was sitting on the bed in a hotel room wearing only his white boxers, reaching down almost to his knees. He was talking on the phone with his mother. His mother had been dead a long time. The voice coming from the receiver only resembled his mother's. The depth of details is key in writing, someone said from the other end. A large naked woman with broad shoulders and massive thighs danced behind him. She was slowly writhing to the rhythm of the electronic music coming quietly through speakers arranged neatly around the corners of the room. Then he heard, "Fascinated by machines, you're avoiding female characters. When I gave birth to you, your father was away on business." With an expression of boredom, the woman behind him came closer and disconnected the phone line. One shouldn't be writhing about death. We live in a culture of happy endings, she said in a metallic, robotic voice. He closed his eyes. He found himself in a luxury apartment full of strippers. The phone rang. It took him a long time to reach out and lift the receiver. The lack of boundaries is the enemy of art, he heard his mother's voice say again. He stopped listening. He watched 3 blondes in high heels approach and then encircle him. 2 of them pulled the phone cable out of the wall, tied it around his neck, and began to squeeze. The third squashed his face with her enormous silicone breasts, suffocating him. He got a strong erection. He didn't even try to defend himself, but instead helped them to tighten the cord. He tightened it around his neck as much as he could, but he had the sense he was tightening a kid's elastic band to no effect, a limp gelatin band.
Preobražaj. Uhvaćen u mrežu nedeljnih porodičnih ručkova, uspavan, tapšanjem po ramenima od svojih najbližih, živo je povučeno, bez ambicija. Nije mogao da bude naivniji. Statirao je u sopstvenom životu i našao se potpuno zatečen udarcima dobijenim kada je pomolio glavu u javnost. Iznenadio je sam sebe željom da se suprotstavi. Pun jarosti, smišljao je osvetu neprijateljima koji su vrebali za sjajnih fasada nedeljnika, obitavali u gnjecanom sivilu dnevnih novina, krili se u virtualnom gustišu internet stranica. U sebi je otkrio predele brutalnosti, tajna postrojenja za proizvodnju mraka koje su radila čak i dok je spavao.
Metamorphosis. Caught in a web of Sunday family lunches, drowsy from leaning into the shoulders of those close to him, he settled into a reclusive life without any ambition. He couldn't be more naive. He'd become an extra in the movie of his own life and found himself completely caught off guard by the blows received when occasionally he ventured out in public. Still, he surprised himself with his desire to fight back. Filled with hatred, he began to devise vengeance against his enemies who preyed upon him from behind the glossy covers of the weeklies, living in the doughy grayness of daily newsprint, hiding within the virtual thicket of internet pages. Within himself, he found regions filled with brutality, secret factories for the production of darkness, which kept working even while he slept. Discovering that lethal, perverted world inflated his self-confidence with no limits for climbing the social ladder. People began to back off from him out of fear for his newly acquired powers. Only his wife could not reconcile the fact that he was no longer the one she had married. She still expected love and understanding from him, a notion he scoffed at as a feminine weakness. Soon he landed a job in the business of transforming polluted air into fresh dreams. He had no time to lose.
Dok su se zveri prikradale. Priključen na aparate, mesecima je ležao bez vidljivih znakova života. Vraćao se iz neke velike, neobjašnjive daljine. Želeo je da uputi neki znak sestrama koje su ga obilazile, stavi im do znanja da je živ. Pokušavao je da pomeri prste, usne, ali uzalud. Bio je slab i za najmanji pokret. Ležao je sklopljenih očiju i u mislima pratio grupicu ljudi u kožnim motorciklističkim jaknama. Naročitu pažnju mu je privukla devojka s muškom frizurom i blistavom crnom kacigom pod miškom. Učinilo mu se da je poznaje, da je dobro poznaje.
Well, the beats crept in. Connected to life support tubes, he lay for months with no clear signs of life. He was returning from some remote, inexplicable place. He wanted to send a sign to the nurses taking care of him to let them know he was alive. He tried moving his fingers, his lips, but in vain. He was too weak even to make the smallest gesture. Lying with eyes closed in his mind, he followed a gang in leather motorcycle jackets. He was especially drawn to a woman with a butch haircut and a bright black helmet under her arm. He thought she seemed familiar to him, that he knew her well. She lay nude on the big bed in his apartment, which also for some reason seemed familiar to him. He knew the furniture, the armoire, the huge mirror in that room. Suddenly, he spotted a shadow along the walls creeping up to the girl. A tall man with broad shoulders was approaching the bed. He wanted to scream, to warn the girl of the intruder, but the stranger's head had already lowered itself between her spread legs. She grasped him tightly by his hair. Inside, something slapped him hard against his chest. Suddenly, he opened his eyes. 5 months, 22 days, 11 minutes, and 3 seconds after the motorcycle accident, he saw the sky for the very first time. It was gray.
Književnost i nasilje. Prekraćivao je samoću beleženje misli. Ja sam komad nameštaja koji brže od ostalih delova prikuplja prašinu, zapisao je u dnevniku. Nije znao otkud mu to, ali verovao je u istinitost automatskog pisanja, pa rečenicu nije precrtao. Sedeo je zamišljen i gledao kroz prozor. Razmišljao je o čilanskom pesniku, opsednutim književnošću i nasiljem. Pitao se da li je potreban talenat kako bi neko postao kriminalac. Odložio je papir i olovku i pošao po čašu vode. Prolazeći pored ogledala u hodniku, spazio je sebe i vrisnuo od užasa. Patuljasti duh čovekoljublja na njegovom ramenu imao je crnu fantomku na glavi.
Literature and violence. He was diminishing loneliness by writing down his thoughts. I'm the piece of furniture which collects dust faster than other parts, he wrote in his journal. He had no idea where that came from, but he believed in the authenticity of automatic writing, so he didn't erase the sentence. He sat deep in thoughts and looked out the window. He was thinking of the Chilean poet obsessed with literature and violence. He asked himself if one needed talent to become a criminal. He set his paper and pencil aside and went to get a glass of water. Passing by the mirror in the hallway, he saw himself and shrieked from horror. The dwarf-like ghost of philanthropy sitting on his shoulder wore a black ski mask over his head.
Borba titana. Čak i kada je raskrinkao sve njihove laži i otišao od njih, još uvek su ga opterećivali svojim nevidljivim prisustvom. Sedeli su u mraku i merili svaku njegovu reč, procenjivali svaki njegov postupak, strpljivo čekali na njegov telefonski poziv. Trudio se da ne razmišlja o njima i ne pridaje važnost njihovim prećutnim očekivanjima, ali znao je da će biti potpuno slobodan tek kada ih sahrani i isplati grobare po obavljenom poslu. Nije se usuđivao da spali porodične fotografije.
The Battle of the Titans. Even when he debunked all their lies and moved away from them, they still burdened him with their invisible presence. They sat in darkness, measuring his every word, evaluating his every move, and patiently waiting for his next phone call. He tried not to think of them, not to give any importance to their tacit expectations, but he knew that he would be completely free only after they were buried and the gravediggers were paid off after completing the job. He didn't dare burn the family photographs. Too many ghosts with healthy teeth and gaunt faces were hiding in the small bits of black and white shadows. Too many cheap blouses and overly short pants were parading. Too much naive optimism and untimely seriousness changed one following the other. There simply was too much of that which strengthened them. And what about them? They were sitting in their armchairs, firmly holding receivers in their skinny, sinewy palms as they stated orders in the form of petitions. In contrast to him who possessed the world, they possessed all the power. Still, his invincibility wasn't interested in that, not at all. And now our last poem.
Edip na rubu ponora. Bio je razveden bez dece. Svakog popodneva nakon posla obilazio je nepokretnu majku. Gurao je u kolicima, vozio u šetnji i na izlete. Nalazio i plaćao patronaže sestre da 24 časa brinu o njoj. Nije imao srca da je smesti u dom. Nije imao srca ni da joj kaže kako mu je glava postala pokvareni bojler iz koga kaplje voda. Čuo je glasove kako mu šapuću. Zakrpi rupu na kazanu, očisti kamenac. Odbijao je samu pomisao da poseti lekara. Ko će brinuti o majici?
Oedipus on the brink of an abyss. He was divorced without children. Every afternoon after work, he went to visit his bedridden mother. He pushed her in her wheelchair, took her out for walks and picnics. He found and paid nurses to take care of her 24 hours a day. He just didn't have the heart to put her in a nursing home. He just didn't have the heart to tell her that his own head had become a broken water boiler leaking in gallons. He heard voices whispering to him, "Fix the hole in the boiler, scrape off the lime scale." He rejected even the very possibility of going to see a doctor. Who'd take care of his mother? His condition worsened. He began to swallow medication, the simplest headache pills. He hoped the voices he heard would soon disappear. One night, he dreamt he was in a car accident and had become paralyzed. His mother came to visit him at the hospital, and the two of them, each in their wheelchair, played basketball. He woke up elated. It seemed to him these were the best moments spent with his mother the best since childhood. After a long time had passed, he walked out of his apartment with a smile on his face. That day, after work, instead of going to his mother's, he went to the zoo. He sat on the bench in front of the leopard cage and for the entire afternoon stared at it. Thank you very much. These were all they were all prose poems. Thank you. Thank you to Zvonko also, who is reading from Belgrade.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, Zvonko, for coming to us late night, and we all in different time zones. But that was great, you guys. Appreciate it. Give you live applause. So our next reader is going to be thilleman. Todd Thilleman writes under thilleman. He migrated to New York from Wisconsin in the early 80s. His essay, poetic memoir, Blasted Tower, deals with aspects of biography and memory, as well as an appraisal of informal education and initiation into American postmodern poetry's. Improviso concerns the day-to-day of his early days in New York City. Thilleman worked for Pace Editions and artist Chuck Close on handmade paper editions under the direction of master printmaker Joe Wilfer. For several years, he ran a somewhat notorious reading series at KGB Bar in Lower Manhattan, an adventure which is chronicled in a recent interview in Brooklyn Rail, which you should check out. It's pretty cool. He is managing editor of Spite and Dival Press, which has published dozens of experimental fiction and poetry titles. Todd appears most recently in the film Poetry New York. Is that film out, Todd? Can we get it anywhere?
Yeah, it's out. It's going to like festivals and stuff right now, and I think they're trying to get it to be streaming somewhere. So we'll see about that soon.
Okay, well, I've read a lot about it. Sounds interesting. Yeah.
We hope. I haven't seen it.
Okay. Oh, you haven't? Okay.
No, he won't let anybody see it unless they go to one of these festivals. I don't know. Patrick he's keeping the lid on it very tight because I think he got screwed over before with some other films that he made. So he's just playing it close to his chest. Yeah.
So are you reading from, which of your books are you reading from?
I'm going to read a section from Improviso.
Okay,
So,
cool.
Yeah.
All right, it's all yours.
Okay, thanks. Thank you. Yeah, as Bill was saying, Improviso it deals with, I was remembering when I first moved to New York City, and so I kind of remembered all the jobs that I was working in. So it starts with the first job, which was I was a doorman, an elevator operator. So I'll start there. Let me see. Buzz, 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 slide door open, lobby level. Mr. Smith, and right away he's chatting, stepping on. I'm stoic yet anxious, gotta get back down. You're a poet, I hear. Well, my son, I was skeptical because, over here, Columbia with Kenneth Koch, Rose, where'd you get that? Anyway, I told him, go ahead. Wasn't sure, but then opened that book. You ever read it? Seen it, yeah. Well, and he's stepping out, his fifth floor stop, says, totally worth it. Best thing my son ever did. Get it. Walks down the hall to his apartment door. I get it. I get it. Buzz, 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 kaplunk, chunk. Slide, opens door, in steps Mr. Rowland. Did you get the part? Maybe, but not sure. I told you working with Sam Shepard, his plays, Jessica Lange, Downtown, Cherry Lane. Jessica Lange, down slow and Gus over small mirror, his dollar rolled tube snorts half his rock. Like that, go ahead. Buzz, 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 jam hard throttle, stick, lift lurches, then bobble, bang, slide, door, gate, slide, fast, hard. Winter is a coming in, Lord, sing, goddamn, goddamn. Mr. Street, thought you'd like that. Always remember that home when weather changes. You know it, of course. Sure, yeah, pound. It keeps talking, fills me up, and why no Buzz must get back down, coke outside my locker before. I don't approve some of his other work, of course, but those translations first rate. Steps off. Well, good night. Night, Mr. Street. Slam, gate, throttle back on down. Buzz, buzz. Shit, not again. Door opens, young model, pimpled face, dressed some throwback. Hey, your husband, my paramour, you mean? Blushes. How long's been she waiting to say that in public? Turns and with doe-like eyes. Well, good night, poet. Giggles, elevator slams its slide, and the gate rattles for quick descent. Somnia hits mine through nose, transforms cognizance, sensoria into manifest off-the-ground travel, vehicular, distilled, refined, shot of an awakened coca leaf. Each swipe past brass rail shines it, more job, consumes person, no role more to play. Deep night of the lobby mirror, glints movements, work done's energy galore, gallantly mops floor, turns each corner more, chandelier, crystal, refractious into the light. At Olivetti with no sleep, for days, night, once again stacked poems through bookcases, wall, no wall passage. I knew then that a new tree stood beautifully in heaven. Close the book, answer in your voice, tat, tat, a tat, tat. Dreams were unleashed from the tree stump chain of my bosom. As long as there is light like this light that comes a voice. Sinatra blasts mid-song up through studio floor, absurd the time, breaking into, that's the jingle bell rock. Time again, traffic picks up, green points awake, smells grease below, bacon, burnt toast, honks, distant traffic filters in through front and back, the apartment above restaurant. On shift out front, no sign of loose, though rumor persists her presence felt, absence makes a deft turn in nature out, own thoughts of time gone, premonitional into quick notes, small book with drawn shapes of hoops or architraves of solid called eye sees as if never before, when shadows wink on the tympanum head of time. Before end shift, take out rock clump, shave onto more dollar bill, stick nose onto it, snort cool wind in my cavity, the buzz, then the buzz, buzz, elevator shaft, it calls me now. Gus comes in lobby down to locker. Let me show you. Check this out. Produces no attention paid. Cloth wrapped in locker. I think mirror? Come here. Check this out. Got it yesterday. Me and my old man. Under dirty cloth on shelf, peeled back handgun with chipped trigger somewhere, but not a toy gun. Larger with plated grip. Flame up the back side. Buzz. Frank asks me into his office, Christ on wall, his desk, he closes door. This guy, Gus, he okay to you? Well, yeah, a bit rough, but he's okay, I guess. My assess too, I don't know because some tenant complains, but if you, well, I don't really know him. Me too, have to think about this, what to do. A fall crisp wind slaps us through Park to Park Avenue, then over 86, Luce says, have to go into the office for a bit. I'll wait. Sure, wait inside, but go in after me, half an hour from now. Through lobby, no doorman in sight. Slip to left, office door. Kathy, oh, hi. Just here to, sure, sit there. She'll whispering, be out in a while, I guess. Chair against wall, minds his own beeswax. Enjoy the marathon. Giggles, we out to the lobby. Oh, we will. Well, they saw us. Fuck them, she says. We cross 86. Brooklyn seems different. Leaves in the park, no trash. Police barricades ready. We sit up in studio window. Crowds gather below my apartment. As the first runners come, we're undressing. Mid-race, gathered voices ebb flow. I'm on my knees, loose hands on thighs, then up her legs, swing round my waist. We fall back on bed, laughing. Heads bump the bookcase. Ichi Gichi Yamalala, Boca Toka Rana Ri, vous allez-vous coucher avec moi, wow, wow, wow. Waking to the fading floorboard radio, a man out of Humperdinck, I think, loose out of bed on naked feet, towel, walks over, then away, her rear side shifts, and New York, I wanna wake up in a city that, oh my God, off stove coffee, come I, up, then kitchen we slip into shower. Frank's in boiler room. Jorge, dame, ay. Frank emerges past his lockers. I'm suited and will be on the boiler repair today. Emergency. Yeah, emergency, says Jorge, greasy rag, wipes hands, face, mustache. Jorge, Frank calls. Take a break later, not now. I take no break, rolls eyes. I hear what you think. Up into lobby, pace a bit, looses voice behind office door. Buzz, up to 5, but just then, hello, not a word, but kids nonstop in through foyer door. Mrs. Page's, our eyes meet, the kids run into my elevator and bounce it. Well, that's what he said. Who is this Chooch? Chooch? You never heard of a Chooch? Rolling over out of platform bed, suitcase still in middle room. Here, I say, could be your desk if you don't mind. The floor radio louder and here seems, well, it's okay. Senile worse than this, honest, when back from Indiana. Oh boy, just be careful, eludes handgun, presence in my building. Quick yet heavy-headed, gust through lobby door, into elevator for shift. I pull, stick it to down, close slide door, basement floor, stop, bounce, elevator sluggish. What the, he says, stepping off. Frank, and got to fix this elevator. I think today, yeah. Oh shit, my dad, I swear, keeps talking. Listen, maybe you can help. Me fucking old man. He won't help. Got to get some cash before Christmas. I can't fucking wait, man, you know? Is that Jorge fuck here? Fucking mustache, oh fuck. Laughs at himself, puts on tie, opens locker door. Listen, can you do me a favor? This is, but I know, but, well, it'll be okay. It'll work. I'll stop there. Thanks, Bill. Thank you.
Thank you. That was fabulous.
Thank you.
That was from Improviso. And I've posted a link to Todd's, the 2 books that we've published by Todd, and also the Zvonko's book, Sleepwalkers on a Picnic. Sorry, I was slow getting to that. And so our next reader is another poet translator pair. This one, Luis Bravo with Catherine Jagoe. The translator, Catherine Jagoe. Luis is a prominent Uruguayan poet, author of 12 books of poetry and numerous multimedia poetry performances. He belongs to Uruguay's generation of 80, known for its struggle to reinvent defunct cultural models and oppose Uruguay's military dictatorship, which began while Bravo was a teenager in 1973 and ended in 1985. As an emerging writer, he was associated with the interdisciplinary activist work of the poets and artists known as Grupo Uno, which was fundamental to his emergence as a public intellectual. In the waning years of the dictatorship, Grupo Uno was largely involved in countercultural resistance work. After 1985, in the artistic and political ferment of the transition to democracy, it became, among other things, a publishing house that brought out over 100 volumes by both Uruguayan and foreign writers, including 2 books and 2 chapbooks by Bravo himself. He was a 2012 resident author at the International Writing Program at the University of Iowa. During that year, he was featured author at Graduate Poetry Workshop at Notre Dame, and he traveled to other US universities to read and speak. He was invited back to read his work at the 50th anniversary celebration of the International Writing Program in October 2017. He recently completed a PhD at the University of Notre Dame and has returned to Uruguay. Catherine Jagoe is an ATA certified Spanish-English translator and an award-winning poet and essayist. She has a PhD in Spanish literature from Cambridge and is a former associate professor of Spanish at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. She's translated fiction and poetry from Spain, Argentina, and Uruguay, including work by Benito Perez Galdós, Elsa Osorio, and Laura Sisarko-Eglin, co-translated with Jesse Lee Kirchhoff. Her publication credits include 7 books and 4 chapbooks, as well as work in numerous literary journals such as American Poetry Review, Drunken Boat, and Modern Poetry and Translation. Her book, Bloodroot, from 2016, won the Settlement House American Poetry Prize, the Council for Wisconsin Writers Edna Moot Award, and an Outstanding Work of Poetry Award from the Wisconsin Library Association. Her poems have been featured by Garrison Keillor on the Writer's Almanac and on Poetry Daily. Her essays have appeared in the Pushcart Prize Anthology for 2016 and earned a notable essay citation in 2019 Best American Essays. Please help me welcome Catherine Jagoe and Luis Gravel.
Okay, thank you very much, Bill. It's a pleasure to be here presenting some of the poems that Bill published. This book, Voice and Shadow, La Voz y la Sombra, from New Orleans in 2020. We are gonna do the reading, sorry. Catherine is gonna read first in English, and then I'm gonna read or put some track in Spanish.
Yeah, hi. So we're reading from this book, as Luis just said, Voice and Shadow, which is our new and selected collection. It's based on a really famous book that came out in Uruguay in 1998, and then takes works from a number of other collections and has some new unpublished work as well. And we're going to start with the early work, a poem from the earlier work. I'm going to read the English, and then Luis, when his book originally came out, they had recorded a performance of it with music, and he's going to play that to you afterwards. The surge. It's a star zooming down a nerve, an inaudible outburst you sense coming, like a lightning strike, its streak like shards embedded in your midriff. The surge marks you indelibly. If the star falls at your feet and you with it, it will take you years to climb to the crater and return across the cinders from the sacred soil. And with every storm, the sky will strike your chest with its pearly stalactites. The surge is that voice that comes out of you, a star zooming down a nerve that you'll have to obey blindly, thunderbolt of faith. The surge derivations. The surge is evidence you can't get rid of once it's been bestowed. There are many dazzling explosions at the surface. Only depth demolishes uncertainty. What is it you want when you desire something? Is it the incessant flux which will become stone someday? Ardent flesh, ardent heart, the ardent flesh of the heart made flesh. What is it you want when you desire something? I want to be here and not here at the same time, like a bell whose rope disintegrates when tolled. The exquisite dreariness of time passing must be fought, pleasure or agony. In the surge, the present is hidden behind a thin scrim. You must surrender to the whirlpool's centripetal force. The paradox grinder is in the middle. You'll be swallowed on your way to unknown territory, black hole, shapeshifter, a whim of body chemistry. And now Luis is going to play that poem, El Estallido.
Thank you, Catherine. Okay, this belongs to Swift Tree. It's a book and a CD-ROM that I published in 1998. And I want to say that the composer, the music composer, is Álvaro Pasquet. We spent our childhood in the same barrio neighborhood in Montevideo. He passed away 12 years ago. So for me, it's a way to bring him to life through his music. This is the search derivations.
El estallido es una evidencia de la que no podrás librarte una vez ejercida su acción propiciatoria. El estallido. El estallido. El estallido. El estallido es una estrella atravesando el nervio. El estallido no se escucha, se presiente como el relámpago. La caída del rayo, su trayectoria. Como esquirlas que se incrustan entre el corazón y el estómago. El estallido es una marca indeleble. Si la estrella cae a tus pies, y tú con ella.
Te llevará años escalar el cráter, volver del humus sagrado entre carbones, y a cada tormenta el cielo te cruzará el pecho con sus estalactitas de nácar.
El estallido es esa voz que viene de ti, a la que tendrás que obedecer a ciegas. El estallido es una estrella atravesando el nervio, a la que tendrás que obedecer a ciegas. Liñazo eléctrico de la fe. El estallido es una evidencia de la que no podrás librarte una vez ejercida su acción propiciatoria. Son múltiples los estallidos espejeantes en la superficie. Solo la hondura alcanza a demoler la incertidumbre. ¿Qué cosa quiere aquel que quiere aquello que desea? ¿Qué cosa quiere aquel que quiere aquello aquello que desea, aquello que desea. Quiere el fluido incesante, de aquello que al ser será piedra, será piedra. La carne ardiente, el corazón ardiente, la carne ardiente, la ardiente carne del corazón, el corazón ardiente, el ardiente corazón, carne del corazón, el ardiente corazón hecho carne. ¿Qué cosa quiere aquel que quiere aquello que desea? Quiero estar y no estar al mismo tiempo. Y quiero estar como una cuerda y no estar al mismo tiempo. Como una cuerda que al sonar revienta al mismo tiempo. Y quiero estar en el desmayo de las horas al mismo tiempo. El fino desmayo de las horas se disputa el placer o la peste. En el estallido el presente se esconde tras una fina película. Debes abandonarte a la fuerza centrípeta del remolino. La trituradora de la paradoja está en el centro. Serás devorado hacia territorio desconocido. Black hole, cambio de piel, capricho de la química de los cuerpos. Black hole. 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 Black hole.
Fine.
The next poem we're going to read, Luis is going to read it first, but I just wanted to say a few words about it. It's actually, I love this poem, and it's set in Ronda in Andalusia in Spain, which is down in the south of Spain. And it's this beautiful, one of those beautiful white towns, and it's very dramatic because it's built over a ravine, a great big chasm that goes right through with a river running through it. So if you've ever been there, you won't forget it. Go ahead, Luis.
Ciudad del Hondo Tajo. El avión abrió el cielo, bordó una hilera de humos y almohadas verticales. Abajo el río se pierde como el hilo colgante de un vestido de fiesta negro. El día hizo su cama y contó, una por una, las nubes que iban de regreso. Silbó 3 veces el tren, a lo lejos. Al otro lado de la ciudad, la única campana se golpeó solitaria a la frente, 3 por 3, 9, contra el badajo de hierro. Al atardecer, hay un hombre sobre la línea del horizonte, un hombre cuyo cuerpo acostado boca arriba es el horizonte. La luz desciende entre las colinas, transparente camisa abierta entre 2 pechos. Atardece azul, atardece en la ciudad que soñó Rilke, atardece durante años, como un insomnio mágico atardece, en el gemir de los cencerros, en el batir de las cuevas, en el cuenco de las manos, en el pico dorado de los cuervos, atardece. La luz se arroja, su pelo negro desatado, hacia el fondo de un tajo cuajado en roca. Por el cuello le brota un líquido de asombros que no se nombra. Alta ciudad del hondo Tajo, muralla del máximo silencio. Ya lo sé, no hay descanso. Monologa el agua bajo el puente, no hay descanso. Se cría el amor como el cardo, violeta encendido en su centro, en mi mano, puntiagudo, de muerte. Se cría el cardo. De tus labios oscuros, ronda, dices, no hay descanso. La luz es una flecha, la sombra es el arco.
And here's the English for that poem. City of the Deep Ravine. The plane unzipped the sky, sowed a seam of smoke and vertical pillows. Down below, the river vanishes like the dangling fringe of a black flamenco dress. The day made its bed and counted the clouds coming home, one by one. The train whistled 3 times in the distance. On the other side of the city, the one bell struck its solitary forehead, 3 by 3, 9, with its iron tongue. At dusk, there's a man on the rim of the horizon, a man lying face up, his body, the horizon. The light comes down from the hills, sheer shirt open between 2 breasts. Blue dusk. It's dusk in the city Rilke dreamed of. It's dusk for years, like a magic vigil, it's dusk. In the groaning of cowbells, in the flapping of caves, in cupped hands, in the golden beats of the crows, it's dusk. The light is plunging its black hair loose into the depths of a gash gouged in the rock. Its neck leaks a liquid astonishment that can't be named. High city of the deep ravine, walled with supreme silence. I know there's no rest, the water whispers under the bridge. There's no rest. Love grows like a thistle, glows mauve at the center, prickly in my hand, the thistle grows on death. With your dark lips, Ronda, you say, there's no rest. Light is an arrow, shadow, the bow.
Thank you, Catherine. Well,
and then we're just going to read one more, but we're going to go, we're going to switch. It's the poem that's written in couplets, and Luis is going to read first, and we'll just go couplet by couplet, English to Spanish, or Spanish to English.
Ok. En el blanco corazón de la inocencia. Escurridiza en un cuerpo de palabras, voz que a sí misma se traduce.
In the white heart of innocence. Slippery in its body of words, the voice translates itself.
Pesca con candil, vislumbre de peces en la oscura libertad de las mareas.
It trawls with an oil lamp, glimpsing fish in the dark freedom of the seas.
Papel de luna sobre la noche marinera, collar de signos en el cuello del abismo.
Paper moon on the maritime night, necklace of signs on the throat of the abyss.
Ella da en el blanco corazón de la inocencia, una zeta del lenguaje la perpetra.
It aims at the white heart of innocence. A linguistic purist perpetrates it.
Y profana lo consagrado que ya no brilla, y en lo sagrado se ejercita.
And profanes the consecrated, which no longer shines and practices the sacred.
Oro en polvo es, y es el viento que esparce el enigma.
It's gold dust, and it's the wind that scatters enigma.
La sal de la duda, la tensa paradoja.
The salt of doubt, the tense paradox.
Nómade de certezas, ¿acaso ramas de un mismo árbol con la filosofía?
Nomad of certainties, maybe it's a branch of the same tree as philosophy.
Es un arte muy antiguo, con su aguja de tiempo a campo traviesa.
It's an age-old art with time's compass leading it cross-country.
Palabras que prefieren no decirse, viaja a los mundos que la habitan.
Words that prefer not to be spoken. It travels to the worlds that inhabit it.
Y como la piedra en su reino, resiste y resiste.
And like the stone in its kingdom, it lasts and lasts.
Descendió del mismo árbol que los monos, pero no hay evolución en su antropología.
Descended from the same tree as the apes, but there's no evolution in its anthropology.
Su topografía no está en el mapa de las manos, es diluvio de un alma que desborda.
Its topography is not on the map of hands. It's the flood of a soul brimming over.
Es el ovillo del olvido. Desteje largamente su ser a destiempo.
It's the skein of forgetting, slowly unwinding at the wrong time.
Ella sabe que vivimos en la piel de un espejismo, por eso sueña la poesía a la poesía.
It knows we live in the skin of an illusion. That's why poetry dreams up poetry.
Thank you very much, Catherine. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, you all from all over. It's a pleasure to be sharing this poem with you here tonight. Thank you.
That was fabulous, you guys. Thank you so much. That was really great.
Thank you. Thank you.
So our next poet is John Warner Smith. John, I'm sorry, I lost my bios. Okay. John Warner Smith is a former poet laureate of Louisiana. 2019, 2021, he was poet laureate. He's published 5 collections of poetry, most recently Our Shut Eyes from Mad Hat in 2021. His novella For All Those Men from UL Press releases this month. Is it, John?
Yes, this month.
He's a Cave Canem Fellow. He's also a 2020 Poets Laureate Fellow of the Academy of American Poets and winner of the 2019 Linda Hodge Bromberg Literary Award. He earned his MFA at the University of New Orleans, as did I myself. His book is, or his Lavender Ink book is Mohammed's Mountain. And please help me welcome John Warner Smith.
Thank you, Bill. I'm going to read one poem, guys. It's rather long, but I'll get it under 10 minutes. And it's a conversation. It's a conversation poem. The collection is a collection of really conversations between America and the 400-year-old nigger. And this is the opening poem of this collection, which I hope will be forthcoming. The title is Poem for America, after Frederick Douglass and Amiri Baraka. I'm a nigger. Yes, I said it. A nigger. Think it with me. Feel me with me. See us with me. A walking, breathing 400-year-old nigger with a fist raised high. A nigger from a housing project built for niggers, went to white schools the federal government forced to let niggers enter, to be spat on and called a nigger, to be educated and miseducated about what niggers have done to build America. A college-educated nigger who wore a pinstriped blue suit, starched white shirt, and red necktie to a corporate job where he was called a nigger. A nigga who moved into a neighborhood where white folks talked to him as if he were a special lucky nigga who had managed to slip past the walls that kept niggas out. A free nigga, not afraid or ashamed to write about the beauty and pain of niggers and how badly white folks are still treating niggers. A nigga able to go anywhere he wants to go and do whatever he wants to do, but can't escape being a nigger. A tar baby nigger who clings to the mind, body, and soul of white America. A common God-fearing family nigger who can't be ignored, dismissed, chopped off, and thrown away. A nigga who ain't some kind of celluloid superstar, iconic nigga who makes the world forget average, nobody niggas, and how badly most niggas are still being treated. I'm talking about the invisible nigga, lucky enough to have a job and a little money in the bank after buying groceries and paying the bills. The nigga next door, around the corner, on the sidewalk and in the elevator. The nigga in the park, on the beach, at the ball game or in the restaurant. The nigga in line and in the aisle, in the office and break room. The nigga in the waiting room, classroom and restroom. The nigga in the car, on a bus, or in the middle seat of a long flight. The nigga who is everywhere but not seen by white folks because they only see a nigger. You feel me? You see my nightmare in the American dream. You feel my pain, the anger in my words, my distrust of promises the government makes to niggas, my distrust of the handshakes of white folks who know, I know, who pretend like they don't see a nigga when he knocks at their front door. You feel uncomfortable, offended. Wonder why I say the word nigger, call myself a nigger. Bring that word into this public space, this moment when white folks ain't calling niggas nigger to their faces, ain't passing laws to separate niggas from white folks, ain't wearing hoods and terrorizing niggas in the middle of the night, ain't hanging niggas from trees, ain't firing tear gas and turning dogs and water hoses on niggas, ain't slinging rocks and spit at niggas' faces the way they used to. This moment when niggas ain't boycotting, marching in the streets, singing freedom songs, busting windows and setting buildings on fire to get rights that white folks got. This moment when a lot of white people embrace niggas as sisters and brothers. Look past niggas' skin color, vote for niggas, even try to be like niggas, help niggas to survive and succeed and treat niggas like God's children, pure, smart, and as equal as white people. This moment, when a lot of niggas are living the dreams of America, healing the world and building wealth, rich, famous, powerful niggas who entertain, run big businesses and sit at the heads of governments. Hell, old nigga, this country got nigga billionaires. You find that funny? You think this is some kind of folk tale or song, some nigga doing drama or preaching a Sunday sermon in February? Wish I would stop saying that word, tired of hearing me say it. Why not the N-word or Black, Negro, or African American? Come on. Think it with me, feel me with me, see us with me, the 400-year-old nigger, stolen from Africa, brought to America in the hull of a slave ship, chained and beaten with a blood-soaked whip, made a nobody, name, country, and family taken from him, a nigger made to breed other niggers, never knew his white daddy master, mama and sisters raped by his white daddy master, grandma sold off and bought again, been put out to die alone in a log cabin deep in the piney woods by his white daddy master. White daddy master who blew niggas' brains out, choked niggas' breath away with a rope dangling from a tree, and set niggas on fire until their charred bodies turned to ash. A nigga too dark and dumb to learn, reason, and create, good for nothing but plowing, picking, packing, and driving a hammer. A nigga not clean and pure enough to sit next to white people, shit where they shit, drink where they drink, eat where they eat, sleep where they sleep, and breathe and read the books they read. A nigga with civil and voting rights that white folks gave him, but he's got to fight and struggle to keep. You feel me? You feel my pain now? This old, angry nigga living in the past, still talking about slavery and Jim Crow, still dreaming about equality and justice for niggas, about being seen as somebody other than a nigga, even an old nigga like me, who ain't been over with a bucket in his hand, an old grown nigga with a wife, kids, and grandkids, house, cars, food stored up, money in the bank, coins in the jar. A nigga with accounts of life and spirit that people who look at him can't see, and other niggers can't steal. Yes, I said it. Other niggers who busted my back door lock, played their records loudly in broad daylight on the stereo they stole from me, while they barbecued chicken I had bought to feed my children. Niggas who dropped out of school because teachers saw them as nothing but niggas, who couldn't learn or would end up behind bars for killing other niggas or get shot by white cops who couldn't see that they are as much a nigga as the ones they shoot. You feel me? You feel this old, angry nigga with eyes fixed on colors of the day, black, white, brown, and yellow, sunbeams and stars lighting my path, rainbow within my reach, eyes wide open to blue lights flashing in my rearview mirror, wide open to the pretentious smiles of good white folks who think they're on top and I'm on the bottom, wide open to the fake decorum of poker-faced personas of political pimps and political hustlers driven by ambition, power, and greed, politicians and preachers who are too dumb, numb, and indifferent to the pain and suffering of niggas. You feel me now? You see me? You see us? You feel uncomfortable? Wonder why I bring a word so offensive, so divisive, so haunting of the past into this space, this moment, this so-called poem. Wish I would shut up. The nerve and disrespectfulness of you, old nigga. Why the fire when we're all warm and cozy in the quiet storm, warm and cozy with civility masking white privilege that keeps even the privileged niggas from getting their due, warm and cozy across the railroad tracks and beneath overpasses, inside shacks, shotgun houses, and deteriorated nigger neighborhoods near industrial plants that pollute the air niggas breathe, warm and cozy on fertile plains and lush hills, inside beachfront getaways, penthouses, mansions, and sprawling suburbs with fences and prices that keep niggas out. Warm and cozy behind the doors of public schools where white teachers don't expect nigger children to learn. Behind sporting events where niggas score points and win games, but get criticized and disciplined for protesting the way niggas are treated. Warm and cozy with nigger literature, art, cuisine. Niggas on records, on television, and in the movies, niggas whose names and faces are better known than the niggas who sacrificed, fought, and died for the freedom of niggas. Warm and cozy, warm and cozy, with laws, judges, and juries that lock innocent niggas up, but don't lock up white cops who shoot and kill innocent niggas. Warm and cozy with paychecks and government checks that barely keep poor folks alive while rich folks pay little or no taxes. Warm and cozy inside churches, mosques, synagogues, and the curtains of voting booths that keep us from setting each other on fire. Why the fire? Why the fire? Why repeat the word nigger over and over again without a pin drop heard, without a bead of sweat, without fear or shame? Why dig up old bones, chisel mountain rock, and speak that word to citizens of the country that invented a nigger, a word that pisses Black folks off when white folks say it, and that decent people of America today wouldn't dare say in the company of each other unless they too are niggers? Why? Because this ain't a folk tale. It ain't comedy, hip hop, or drama. And it damn sure ain't a Sunday sermon. It's just a cry of an old hurting soul, a tired soul, tired of living and dying in the shadow of freedom, smothered by his hopes and dreams, tired of lies, hypocrisy, and false promises, tired of fighting to make justice a reality for all of God's children. A long, sorrowful cry with no tears, no hate and malice, but prayerful that if there is ever a time when seas, mountains, and rivers are gone, when the sky and land are gone, when knowledge, language, and belief don't exist, when there's nothing to hold on to and let go, nothing to stand on and build, to sow and reap, to explore, discover, imagine, and create, nothing to exploit and conquer, to destroy and take. If there is nothing, if there is a time when nothing remains of the dark, the dawn, and daylight of America, except us, you and me, the 400-year-old nigger will be gone. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks so much, John. That was quite stunning. So our last reader from the press today is going to be Jonathan Kline. Jonathan works in a genre that's almost uniquely his own. Sometimes you don't know whether to call it poetry or prose. Sometimes he calls it storytelling. He received an MFA in storytelling from the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. He's performed in New York, Chicago, Seattle, New Orleans, Dublin, and Cork, Ireland. His performance monologues include conceptual cowboy yodeling, stories my mother told me never to tell when I was 20, and the Terminal Hotel. He has been a visiting artist at Edinburgh University of Pennsylvania, Tulane University, New Orleans Center for Creative Arts, and many other venues. In 2011, he was awarded a residency by the Santa Fe Art Institute. His stories have been published in Xavier Review, Maple Leaf Rag, Indigent Press. His poems have been published in Tribes Magazine, Big Bridge, Yacht, Cocktail, the Maple Leaf Rag, and the Journal of American Poetry. His book is a novel comprised of 2 novellas, I think he's going to be reading from that today. And anyway, please help me welcome New Orleans friend and neighbor, Jonathan Kline.
Here we are. There it is. Here I am. Kenneth sat in his nest in the mausoleum, making shadow puppets with a candle, singing Muskrat Love. You could hear the old poet talking to himself for blocks. His anguish hushed the empty neighborhood night. Dogs knew better than to bark when that rolling baritone cursed the air. Under the wink is the eye that follows. Under the smile are the teeth that grind. Under the knuckles are the lonely palms and the tension of skin. Beyond the ink lies the cancer of symbols, the weight of oblivion and a gripping loss. Awaken an idea so insignificant, dreams cannot penetrate the nevertheless of hello. Because 20 poems an hour beat the plate of cold facts. Lady, I could hold up a mirror to your eureka and it wouldn't stop a single skinny kid from pissing in a pop bottle or all the chicken shit smarties from seeing my soul in their soup like a sheep's eye in an ice cube. The moon shone through the fog. The old poet stood under the broken streetlight and peed in the cemetery wall. Hello, my strange, filthy friend, he whispered. How are you going to blow my mind tonight? Salve mi sordidis extramicus amicus. Comodo discursus amitot in noce. Vobis amicus utit linga. Secut elephanti perder. Came the reply from the cemetery. The old poet was so surprised he peed on himself and burst into a fit of laughter as he put the sentence together. You use language like an elephant farts. So some of these stories came out in the Xavier Review, which is very cool. Thanks, Bill. Thanks, Ralph. The thief slid her hand through the crack in the tomb and gently fished around for the slender bone that she could see from the outside. When she tried to pull her hand out, the crack became a monkey trap. Her hand only fit through empty. She laughed at herself for a moment, then threaded the bone up her wrist and out the crack, retrieving it with other hand. Hello, she said to the lonely Alna. My name is Abby. She held it for a moment, then slid it back in the tomb and wiped her hands on her jeans with a shiver. Kenneth could hear her coming closer, so he made himself small in the dark corner of the mausoleum, praying silently and kissing his Saint Metal. The iron gate squeaked. He watched in fear as the flashlight shone over his nest, his collection of things, then on to him. I'm so sorry, she said, and turned off the flashlight and backed out into the light. I didn't mean to walk into your home. I mean, I kind of knew you live here. I'm friends with the old poet, the one who talked to her a lot late at night. I was kind of hoping to meet you, but honestly, I didn't mean to walk right into your home. Her voice was soft, her apology sincere, even though Kenneth knew I didn't mean to walk right into your home meant I didn't mean to walk in when you were home. He lit a candle and said, best forget that. Abby walked in and sat down. My name is Abby, she said, trying not to sound like she was talking to a child or a pet. I'm Kenneth, he replied, looking at her in the candlelight. Kenneth saw people in terms of danger and safety. Women were safer than men, but not all. Old men were safer than young men. Young women were safer than old women. "We have many beautiful things," she said, looking at his collection. A large black beetle, 3 small antique bottles, each holding blue jay feathers, 7 bird skulls, pottery fragments, piles of string and rubber bands. "You klepta? Took all them buku pretty crap and pitched like fat turds?" Abby thought about the word klepta for a moment. Klepta. Kleptomaniac. Then replied, "That's right. I steal things nobody wants because they are buku pretty." She reached into her bag and produced a small box of rusted springs and shook out a few in Kenneth's hand. Kenneth looked at them like jewels. "Ooh, that's crazy shit, all right," he said, and tried to give them back. "Oh no," she said, "it's a gift," and handed him the box. It was old and fragile with words Dixie Mill printed on it. He accepted it as a thing of great value and importance, carefully setting it down and placing a bird skull on top. Father Pace had explained to Kenneth that if he smelled too bad, they would put him back in the white room or the clean cage, as Kenneth called the hospital in Latin. So Father Pace arranged for him to bathe at the YMCA on Tuesdays. The smell of the mausoleum, however, was making Abby sick. "It was lovely to meet you," she said, as she rose to leave. Kenneth took out a tin can that had been decorated by a child, crayon, glitter, and cotton balls, and handed her a small pink matchbox printed Petunia's Restaurant, New Orleans. Inside was a tiny, perfect gecko skeleton. "You want to bring home the dead? Him small, but him dead." Episode 20. Boss Tully killed her every day. He was sitting under the umbrella, talking to the young detective as the smell of boiled seafood, roasting coffee, and mule piss blended with his $5 cigar. The young detective talked about his progress finding the knucklehead Derek Granger, as Tully arranged 3 beignets in a line like vertebra, secretly dreaming of her pigeon-toed death. The voice droned on as images of hands and necks paraded behind his eyes. Eleanor Frith died before she could scream, Tully thought, remembering the egret snatching the green lizard in his dream. The killer's precision was a thing of beauty, flawless and painless in its execution. The hard part was getting her down that hallway. Was she seduced? Did he convince her there was a lost puppy, a sick mother? Why would she leave the safety of the sidewalk? He chatted her up 1,000 times, became her lover, her pastor, a stranger, but he couldn't get her to leave the sidewalk at 7 a.m. It didn't make sense. Scenarios played out behind every thought and every interaction. They went on continuously, holding her at gunpoint, seducing, tricking, cajoling, coercing, drugging, but they all ended up with a how could or why would. Tully just wanted to let her die. Murder always seemed so simple to him. Somebody wants something or wants something to stop. Somebody's mad about something or has something to hide. He thought about the knucklehead and how maybe he took his time in prison to fester a murderous rage. No, that Pennywise isn't going to do anything besides disappear into a bottle. It has to be either completely random or somebody else with a mighty big beef. That's the kind of rage you build up to. The kind where there's no more rage at all. Just a cold knife in the back and move on. Why the arrangement? Why the parted hair, the open blouse, the head cocked just so? Tully imagined a rage so deep and personal, it grew as hard and fast as a thrusting bird beak. No hot need for explanation, no quixotic fire of revenge, just a quiet, empty gesture of the inevitable. The young detective was going on about his trip to St. John the Baptist, how the girl in the flower print dress told him where to find the knucklehead, and the road up to the syrup mill, and how there was an alligator in the little pond right there with the crushing machine and the big, huge kettle of syrup, the cane fields for miles in all directions, and this damn alligator in the pond. Boss, the damn thing was 5 feet long. Wasn't the biggest it ever was, but just the same. I mean, how did the fish get in there? Anyway, so the knucklehead knows his rights, and the sheriff and LaPlace wanted a warrant, and the judge wanted some evidence. Tully caught a snip of the monologue and interrupted, saying, "The knucklehead didn't do it. I mean, yeah, go find him and all, but he didn't do it." He ain't got the balls. What about the deacon's wife? You said she hated him, all right? Then it goes to follow that she hated the kid too. I mean, she didn't do it herself, but that church has got some secrets, you heard me? You mean like maybe the knucklehead ain't Eleanor's daddy? The young detective replied. Boss Tully wanted to slap him for being stupid, but instead cocked his head, opened his eyes wide, and said, "Damn, you are a detective." Tully looked at the 3 beignets arranged on the napkin like in a line to the cup like a spine to a skull, and picked the one in the middle. So, I guess my time. Thanks.
Thanks, Jonathan. That was great. Thank you to all the readers, Jonathan Kline, John Warner Smith, Catherine Jagoe, and Luis Bravo, Todd Thielman, and Biljana Obradović, and Zvonko Karanović. And thank all of you for coming out to the reading. And please go check out the website, check out some books. Want a special deal? Get your library to order them. Shoot me an email and I'll make something happen. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, all you fantastic readers. What an
Thanks,
evening.
Bill.
Thank you very much, Bill.
Yes, thank you for everything you do. We really appreciate it.
We have not ended. We have not ended our session tonight because we have several open mic readers as well.
All right.
And also, I'm going to let you know about our next show, which may be a little while away. October 29, we have Erica Wurst, Lynn Melnick, Catherine Jagoe, and Shira Dentz, and a lot of fiction actually that weekend. So please do join us. We'll be taking a break next weekend, but we will be back the weekend after with a plum. And once again, thank you, Bill, and for all your readers tonight. And I'm going to hand it over to my co-host Cassandra to address the open mic situation.
Yes, we do everything with the plum here. I love that about us. I have asked Bill prior to starting open mic, I have asked Bill if he would read for us. I think it's such a wasted opportunity to have Bill here and not hear him read one of his poems. So I hope it's okay, Bill, if you read us something.
Oh, wow. Okay. Let me see. This will be something hot off the desk. So for a long time, I've been working on this series of poems based on St. Augustine's City of God, which I read the better part of, or I read the first part of it, first half, only about 800 pages. And I finally got to the end of that project, and I wrote a few poems that are sort of poems of release at the end of this long, strenuous project. One of the things I discovered when I was, I discovered some interesting etymologies in the course of the study. One of them is the etymology of the word liberty, which comes from the ancient god Liber. Liber actually predates classical antiquity. It's a Proto-Indo-European word. Liber was an ithyphallic god that sort of evolved into Dionysus or Bacchus, and was and Priapus, of course, the quintessential ithyphallic god. But anyway, I was kind of, there's my dog. So I was kind of studying this, and at the end of this thing, I I had a dream. I dream my dick is huge like Lieber's, hard as rock, standing like a totem. I'm fascinated with its touch and cannot leave it alone, but just as I'm about to come, someone walks in the room and I try to cover it up. I can't, of course. All I can do is hug it to my breast, and she pretends not to notice as I furiously blush. And then soon after I wrote that poem, we were on vacation and we drove by. I happened to look out the window while we were driving and I saw, we were in Lynchburg, Virginia, and I saw Liberty University, which is the Jerry Falwell megalopolis. And I don't know if you remember the scandal where Jerry Falwell Jr. was forced to step down as president of the university because they found out that he had put a catamite on the payroll to have sex with his wife. Anyway, so I wrote a little poem about that. The university was founded, I say the Jerry's Falwell, because it was founded by Jerry Falwell Sr. and handed to Jerry Falwell Jr., who finally resigned as a result of this scandal just a couple of years ago. At Liberty University, Lynchburg, Virginia, the mission is to train champions for Christ, with courses in the scripture, which is called canonical. That's a quote from Augustine, as well as Augustine himself, and certainly not in the rights of Lieber, though the Jerry's Falwell did exercise some rights. For example, Junior in the front pew cheering Becky getting her nut atop the hired libertarian dong, taking liberties with ladies and the language too, until the preaching exceeded the preaching and the air fluffed up his hair and retired to focus on the Trump campaign. I think I'll stop there.
Thank you so much. You had me at I dream my dick is huge as Lieber's. Fantastic way to begin. Thank you so much, Bill. In our open mic, we have a stellar array, and we're going to start with, and I'm going to hold it up myself because look what I've got. John Wessex, the shaman in the library. It may have a testimonial by me on the back, but we get to hear him read from it again this week. John, what are you reading?
Thank you.
From this
Yeah,
beauty?
okay, so it's from the book. This is called 32 Flavors of Rejection. Some days are hard as glass and not as clear. Days when the knuckles of confidence bloody themselves against granite doors, and the only bandage is a flimsy cellophane of denial. Days when equations take up torches and pitchforks, and the electronics is nothing but a box of flashing lights and baffling parts. When the yards are long and the rewards meager, when the bed is empty and my date has a doubled chin, when the novels don't sell and 10 years of college is not enough, when the economy serves the bitter melon of rejection, I reach for a pepper shaker of resentment. So many years now, I've gotten used to the flavor. My successes are not sweet. They taste of crowded airports, lonely hotel rooms, and the blandness of routine. Even if a pastry falls from the winner's table, my tongue detects a chemical aftertaste. I step away from the banquet and return to my self-imposed diet. Chat. Thank you.
I love it. Thank you. And you're so Raymond Chandler-esque today with that hat. I really like it.
I even bought a trench coat maybe later in the year.
Well, that's a whole nother story. Okay. Next, we have Philip, who also has a book out, and it's a beautiful book with an incredible cover. He might hold it up for us. I don't have one, but I believe that I am getting one. So I'm excited about that. Philip.
Thanks. And thanks so much for the readers tonight on the panel. That was fantastic. It always makes my Saturday nights to attend things like this. It's just terrific. So thank you so much. If you don't know, you probably do, but if you don't, Tübingen is a town not too far from Stuttgart, has a famous university there. I mentioned Jürgen Moltmann, who is a theologian. The Neckar is a river that runs through Tübingen. And Moltmann wrote a book called The Crucified God, that's what he's most famous for. So the poem is in Tübingen. Jürgen Moltmann smokes alone. After strolling the Neckar's bank, he retires to his rooms, writes all night of his crucified God. Theology tomes rise like stones across the plane of his desk, excuse divine inaction by positing a present absence, an absent presence, as if we should feel pity for God. Even Moltmann lies awake at night, fingering a cross he cannot see and organizing a defense to Ivan Karamazov's rebuke, the Russians' contempt for saviors who offer heavens built on the cries of a boy locked up for hurling a stone at the general's hound and freed to flee the dogs until they tear him apart as his mother looks on. Such are the ends of absent gods. 50 now, I know better what Moltmann has tried to say. Nothingness can be palpable, a thing known only in its passing. The wind torn by Holderlin's tower, the last hint of cello rising from the hall, the dimple where the dog lay before she heard the morning's first bird song and nosed her way into the stubborn dark.
Wow, your poems get me every time. The sense of place is so tangible, and you always have those really moving endings, especially that one with the dog in the morning. Thank you so much, Philip. It's always a joy to hear you. And you know I love your accent. I do think one day I have to get you to do my phone. Cassandra's not here at the moment, but please leave a message because I love it. I'm obsessed with it. Thank you so much.
I'll do your phone message if you do mine.
Yeah, all right, totally. You can deal with my flat Australian vowel sounds. No problem. Cindy, it wouldn't be right if we didn't have the badass poet herself who's going to read something marvelous.
Are you sure?
Yeah, oh, look, it's hat day. It really is. I should have said that before. We've got, Cindy in her gorgeous, is it a beret?
Yes, in my French beret. It's really an Australian beret. I have a book coming out in December called Telling You Everything. This is going to be the cover. And Cassandra knows about it and has been wanting me to read from it for a couple of weeks, so I finally will. Cassandra was kind enough to blurb the book, and I don't understand any of her big words. I had to look them up, but I know that she gave me a glowing review, and just having the name Cassandra Atherton on my book is an honor. I'm going to read a poem called The Mercurial Muse. And the reason I say the muse is mercurial is because she doesn't visit me often, unfortunately. And when she doesn't wear a mask. So she's a pain in the neck. The Mercurial Muse. It's got anaphora at the beginning, and every line starts off the Mercurial Muse. The Mercurial Muse is shaped like a sundial. The Mercurial Muse puts on her mauve lipstick. The Mercurial Muse is missing her snowshoes. The Mercurial Muse has invisible footprints. The Mercurial Muse likes chit-chat and tangents. The Mercurial Muse hates lawsuits and tantrums. The Mercurial Muse left this poem 'neath my lashes. The mercurial muse left 5 poems on my pillow. The mercurial muse left 10 poems in my womb. The mercurial muse is nursing her ducklings. The mercurial muse is drowning in feathers. The mercurial muse is missing her antlers. The mercurial muse is missing her mother. The mercurial muse has run out of ink. Thank you. It was a great reading. Philip's right. Excellent reading. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. You're so kind too. But you are the queen of anaphora. I am the girl is one of my favorites. And now you've got the mercurial muse. So I love your style and I love your voice in poetry. You are amazing. Thank you. And our final, you know who he is. He's sometimes referred to as the kitchen himself, the kitchen personified. Bob, coming in from his kitchen, is going to give us something to take away today and think about, well, if you're in the evening, to think about and maybe dream about, and for me, to start my day with. So, Bob, it's always exciting to hear from you.
Thank you. A great reading today, incidentally. Information. Carries the knife as one would a dead bird. Carries the tree to the door to the sea. Carries the man to the woman and the woman to the place where the sky begins. Carries a machine to the place that resembles. Carries the words so they cannot be used.
How good is he, everyone? How good is information when it comes from the kitchen? Where the sky begins. I'm going to take that with me. Bob, you are amazing. Thank you for your information today. And Mark, back to you.
Well, thank you. Well, I think I've mentioned that we have Erica Worth, Lynn Menelik, Catherine Jagoe, and Shira Dents coming up on October 29. But then after that, we have the Dada weekend, which includes November 5 and November 6. And such luminaries as Heidi Hantry, Bob Archambault, Valerie Wastano, Vic Shirley, Eloise Hueck, Anatoly Kororevsky, Andrew Giron, Charles Bernstein, Lloyd Schwartz, and Carla Harriman. So that should be kind of a bit of a joy. And of course, Dada-inspired surrealism, surrealism-inspired postmodernism, perhaps? Anyway, thank you so much for this wonderful evening, and thank you, Lavender Ink and Diálogos, and your authors. And here's just a little poem from my new book that just came out about 2 seconds ago, called 39 Wonders and Other Management Issues. And it's out from Spite and Bible. Beatitude. Across the event horizon, a 2 magnitude death. More docile fingers this time, unearthing springs at their source, haphazardly unframing the picture, the frustration of not being able to get your attention. But I think we did get your attention tonight. Thanks, everybody. Lots of love and poetry. Love you all. Let's keep this poetry fest going, yeah?
Yeah. Thank you guys for having us.
Good night, everyone.